The Mecklenburg County election debates are a service of WTVI, Mecklenburg County, and the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. The views and opinions expressed in these debates are those of the candidates and do not necessarily represent the views of WTVI, its management, Mecklenburg County, or the League of Women Voters.
PBS Charlotte and the League of Women Voters present Election Debate 2016.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Rivenbark with PBS Charlotte. We'd like to welcome you to the 2016 general election debate sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. During the next 20 minutes, you'll hear from two candidates in the North Carolina House of Representatives District 103 race. Questions for today's debate were provided by the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. The candidates were not given the questions in advance. I'll call on the candidates in random order and you will have 30 seconds to respond. If you would like to challenge an opponent, raise your yellow challenge card and you will have 30 seconds to do so. Each candidate has 3 challenges during this debate and you will be allowed to make a 30-second closing statement at the very end. And now let's meet the two candidates for NC House of Representatives District 103, Republican Bill Brawley and Rochelle Rivas, who is the Democrat candidate. Again, we're glad to have you both here. The first question is, does the legislature have any role to play in diffusing situations like the recent protest and racial tension in Charlotte? Why or why not? And again, we're looking for a 30-second response. Bill Brawley, we go to you first.
Well, thank you, Mr. Rivenbark. I think the primary role that we provide is allowing the governor the opportunity to have a strong highway patrol and a good National Guard to make available for cities when they're required. In this particular instance, it is the policy of the state to only come in at the request of the mayor, and tactical control stays with the chief of police. While we provide the funds for the highway patrol, the actual executive decision rests with the governor, and that's the role.
Thank you. And now, Rochelle Rivas, your response.
I absolutely think that the legislature needs to have an active part. It is a bipartisan issue when it comes to community policing. And I think we need to fund programs that allow for us to be able to do that in such a way. I agree that we have had some things of late that have not played out in the national media or the local media the way that any of us would have liked. And I think we all can do a better job, particularly legislation, to make sure that we fund programs beyond just state and local levels to afford the ability to do community policing.
Thank you. The next question is, where do you stand on House Bill 972 enacted by the legislature to prohibit release of body cam videos without a court order? Rochelle, we go to you first.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that legislation, and I feel I would offer, I come from a family, a long line of law enforcement, and my grandfather was in law enforcement, my dad was in law enforcement, my brother is a commander of a police department, and I would offer that they would say transparency is key. And I'm concerned that we can't allow one individual be the person that would release video when it belongs to the public. The public pays for it, and we have a right to see that, and we don't want it playing out in social media.
Again, the question is, where do you stand on House Bill 972 enacted by the legislature to prohibit release of body cam videos without a court order? Bill Brawley, your response.
I supported it, but first I want to challenge the assumption of your statement. It did not prevent the release, it actually allowed it. In most jurisdictions, body cameras were considered personnel records and were not subject to release. It was also no circumstances under which body cameras could be forced released. What we have done is authorized chiefs of police or sheriffs to release body cameras under specific circumstances. And if persons who believe they have a legitimate case for access are denied, they can ask for a superior court to order release.
All right, thank you, Bill. And we want to ask a follow-up question to that one. Should police be required to turn on body cams when responding to an incident? Bill Brawley, back to you.
They already are in most jurisdictions, and in fact, most people don't realize body cams are constantly recording. When you turn it on, you just begin to save the recording, which means that things said and done before it's turned on will be on the tape, including maybe conversations with people not involved with the incident.
Rochelle, your response?
I 100% agree that they should be turned on at all times, and I think that is That is a necessity, and again, I would offer that the police and the community want accountability and transparency, and each time that we have a situation, it is perceived that there's lack of that. I 100% support that they should be turned on at all times.
Thank you. Our next question is, even though the North Carolina Constitution gives the legislature the power to overrule local ordinances, are they abusing that power with recent actions? Rochelle, Rivas?
That's a lofty question. I think if you look in some legislation of late, HB2 would be an example of that. I think that we had a situation where there was a city ordinance that was passed, and our legislature used that as an opportunity to pass some sweeping legislation that was discriminatory and ultimately has hurt our state. And I think in a lot of instances, local governments need to be governed by the people that are elected to govern them.
Bill Brawley, your response.
Well, the premise of your question is misleading. We don't have the ability to overrule specific ordinances. What we do have is the ability to create cities and delegate powers to them. The Charlotte ordinance not only overreached powers they had, but did things beyond what they claimed. The legislature believed that Charlotte creating access to all facilities for people of both sex, regardless of situation, was not a good thing for North Carolina. While Charlotte talked about transgender, what they actually did was allow every man in every shower, locker room, and changing room in the state.
Thank you. Would you support an independent commission redistricting legislative and congressional districts? Why or why not? Bill Brawley, back to you.
I voted for those in the past. I was actually on one in 1992, but the Democrats in the legislature overturned it. In 2000, there was one, once again headed by Republicans. The Democrats in the legislature overturned it. The Mecklenburg County Commission was redistricted in 2011 by a commission headed by the chairman of the Democratic Party. I would like to have a nonpartisan commission. The difficulty is, how do you get a nonpartisan commission that's work is able to be both fair and stand?
Thank you. Rochelle, Rivas?
I 100% a nonpartisan commission. We, as legislators, should not be picking our voters. The voters should be picking us. It's a very simple concept, and we have been in a situation as a state where the courts have ruled that we have districts that have been gerrymandered and are not favorable in many instances to certain parts and populations of this state. And that is not what we want to be known for as the state of North Carolina.
Thank you. The next question is, citizens demand tax cuts, but also demand better education, health care, roads, technology improvement, etc. How do you balance these conflicting demands? Rochelle, Rivas?
I think the conflict is that we don't put the priority on the things that we need to put the priority on. And I do not advocate to raise taxes. I advocate that we put the money towards things like education. We have a serious issue with education in our state. We rank 44th in teacher pay, 41st in student spending. And it is not an issue of raising taxes. It's an issue of where we put the priority on the spend. I'm concerned that we're boasting about a surplus when we have an education system that is in dire need of money.
Thank you. Bill Brawley, your response.
Well, I completely agree that we need to prioritize our spending. And while we have been cutting taxes, this chart shows education spending since 2008. You will notice that it was reduced by $700 million by the Democrats between 2008 and 2010. Since then, it has gone up every year under the Republicans. There are 2 years not on here for another almost $1 billion increase. Those increases took place. At one time, North Carolina was 19th in teachers' pay. Under the Democrats, it became 44th. We've gotten up to 34th. Now we're 28th.
Thank you. The next question is, do you favor the establishment of a dedicated state funding source for the North Carolina Housing Trust Fund? Bill Brawley, back to you.
It would depend on what it is. Right now, that's an appropriated expense. I know the Housing Trust Fund does a lot of good work in workforce housing. The really best answer for low-cost housing and housing affordability is a reduction of the overregulation by local governments. In Charlotte, probably a third of the cost of housing is regulation.
Thank you. Rochelle, Rivas?
Could you repeat the question?
Question is, do you favor the establishment of a dedicated state funding source for the North Carolina Housing Trust Fund?
I do support that. And one of the things that we struggle with, and this has come to light with a lot of the things that we understand is specific to Mecklenburg County. We rank 50th in poverty in the country, and that is nothing that any of us are proud of. We have to have affordable housing available to people to be able to live in this city. We are rich with corporations, and we are not providing housing in an affordable manner for people that need to live here.
Thank you. The next question is, does it make sense not to expand Medicaid when North Carolina loses federal tax dollars, health insurance coverage for more people, and more jobs in the health industry? Rochelle, Rivas?
Absolutely. We need to expand it. We have people that are not insured right now, and it is a fundamental issue when people don't have health care and access to health care that we must have as a state. We again are lagging as a state on this issue, and we need to absolutely expand it.
Mr. Brawley?
Absolutely not. The best answer for able-bodied, single, unemployed adults is a job, not guaranteed health care. While people say it's free, for the first 3 years, the federal government say they'll pay 100%. After that, the cost is about $4.85 billion a year, of which the federal government will pay 90%. That leaves us almost $500 million out of pocket. But remember, the federal government used to pay 90% of interstate highways. Now they pay less than half. If the same thing happens, we'll be out of pocket $2 billion. We don't have it.
Thank you. The next question is, would you reinstate the North Carolina refundable earned income tax credit to give working families a tax break and thus a boost to the local economy? Why or why not? Bill Brawley.
Actually, I like that. In 2012, I was able to extend it as part of the Revenue Law's Technical Corrections Bill. I worked out a deal with Deborah Ross where neither side would make it a partisan issue and we could just hide it in technical corrections. In 2013, I told her we would do it again in 2014 if we could keep it from being nonpartisan. Unfortunately, several Democrats, Larry Hall, Paul Lutke among them, would rather have the issue than the tax credit and made it so partisan we could not pass it.
Thank you. Rochelle, Rivas?
Bill obviously has more context around the legislation that has happened before now. But I would offer that we absolutely need to reissue it, and it is not a bipartisan issue. We need to help all families across the board, with middle class all the way down. And it is something that became a partisan issue. Again, Bill would know more about that than me, but we absolutely need to reinstate that and help the families that are struggling.
The next question is, what kind of state plan is needed to ensure water quality and supply in the long term, considering recent coal ash spills, droughts, flooding, conflicting regulations, etc.? Rochelle, we'll go to you for that.
Yeah, we should be concerned right now. We have massive flooding in our area right now, which leads to further issues of coal ash spread. We need to hold companies accountable that have not participated in the cleanup of a lot of these issues that we're faced with right now. There are laws in place to address this, and we have not held those companies accountable. And we as citizens and legislators should right now be worried about the flooding that is occurring today and will impact our streams and rivers with downstream with coal ash.
Mr. Brawley.
We'll probably be in special session next week to deal with the flooding from the hurricane. Fortunately, we've got a $1.6 billion rainy day fund to deal with it. As for coal ash, it's been accumulating since the 30s. That's before I was born. Duke Energy has handled coal ash in the way the Utilities Commission has required. They could have done more expensive treatments, but the Utilities Commission would not let them recover those costs. One thing we can do is process coal ash. It's needed in concrete. That would be a good solution, but it will take a while.
Thank you. The next question, what is your position on the sale of military-style weapons to civilians? How do you think continued sales and ownership of such weapons will impact the levels of violence and death across the country? So what safeguards, legislation can you suggest? Bill Brawley.
Sale of military-style weapons, they look like military weapons, but they're not. Military weapons tend to be full auto or with a great deal of firepower. These are not available at your local gun store. There is a federal background program. I don't think it works as well as it should. As for handguns in North Carolina, the sheriff has the final say on people's permission to buy a handgun. And I have supported continuing that because I don't trust the federal system. We do need background checks. But outlawing a gun that looks different does not change the mind of the person that uses it.
Thank you. Rochelle, Rivas?
I 100% support the Second Amendment, but I also do not support assault weapons in the hands of private citizens. There is absolutely no need for those types of weapons to be in the hands of people. We need to close the gun show loophole where people are acquiring these weapons without background checks, without any type of screening. And I think when the Constitution of this United States was formed, there was no intention at all for people to have assault weapons that could do mass killing.
Thank you. And the last question we have is, who are you supporting for president? Rochelle Rivas, 30 seconds.
I support Hillary Clinton for president.
Bill Brawley?
Well, I'm certainly displeased with the way Mr. Trump has spoken, and if he's in the White House, I would not be comfortable with my daughters going there. However, if Hillary Clinton is in the White House, I don't think my daughters will be safe anywhere. So I'm going to support Donald Trump because he will at least sign the common sense legislation passed by the Republican Congress to improve our economy and strengthen our defense.
Thank you. And now it's time for our closing statements. And once again, I want to remind you, you'll have 30 seconds. Rochelle Rivas, we begin with you.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys hosting this debate, and I think it's good to get the issues out. I want to thank Bill for your years of service. I think that you have done the job that you intended to do, and I appreciate that you have done it. It is certainly not easy. I would ask the voters of District 103, though, to take another look, and a look at a more moderate person that can bring jobs into the marketplace. I am a business owner. I employed 63 people last year in my company. I am widely known in this marketplace as a nonprofit leader, and most importantly, somebody that can get things done in a very moderate fashion, working across the aisle.
Thank you. Mr. Brawley, your statement.
I think it's great that you've got a business and can employ 63 people. And one of the things we've done over 6 years is lower your tax and regulatory burden and make it easier for folks like you to come to North Carolina, start businesses, and be successful. We still have some challenges ahead. The sales tax redistribution that was forced by rural constituencies last year will come back. I was in a position to defeat it because of the years that I have and I guess you would say, the expertise I've accumulated. My job is not done, and I ask you to return me that I can continue to work for you.
All right, thank you. And once again, Bill Brawley is the Republican candidate, Rochelle Rivas, Democrat candidate. They are competing in the NC House of Representatives District 103. Bill and Rochelle, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon, for taking part. For more information about the League of Women Voters of Charlotte-Mecklenburg, go to goleaguego.org. For information about the candidates, we encourage you to check out vote411.org. And a reminder for Mecklenburg County voters, early voting begins Thursday, October 20th with 10 locations. An additional 12 sites will open up on Thursday, October 27th. Early voting ends Saturday, November 5th. The general election is Tuesday, November 8th. Election Day polls will be open from 6:30 in the morning until 7:30 in the evening. I'm Jeff Rivenbark on behalf of everyone at WTVI PBS Charlotte. Thanks for watching.